What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato. Today, I want to talk to you about the contradiction of moderation. Moderation being an idea that's been around for a very long time, thousands of years, as a matter of fact. But there's a saying that is very popular and has been popular for decades, even centuries, as it turns out, all things in moderation. Now, the irony behind the saying is it's actually been cut off. There's more to the saying than just all things in moderation, which we'll get to in a little bit. But the reason that this topic and this idea is so important is not because you should think about moderating more things, although you should, but it's more a question of what you're moderating. Because most people take the idea and apply it to healthy aspects of life but don't apply it to the things that make them unhealthy or the things that make them unfit or the things that make them unhappy. Because we want to justify our inaction in health and in personal development and in things that actually make us better, we apply the idea to moderation mostly to that area of life, to the area of life that empowers us instead of tears us down. Because we look at the area that tears us down as normal. If you look at most of society, most people do a certain group of activities. They eat processed foods, they eat out regularly, they eat at fast food, they drink soft drinks, they don't move, they're not active, they they rarely exercise, they sleep like shit. They do all of these things. And so we look at that and we think that that is the way things are and that we should moderate these other things, exercise and eating well and so on and so forth, because we don't want to get too out of balance. We don't want to lean too far that way because we don't want to be unhappy. And that's where society has pulled us. It has pulled us into a direction of which, if only if you live in gluttony are you happy. If you don't live in gluttony and you live a what most people deem a stoic, restricted life, if you live that way, you're going to be unhappy. Now, I am a person that most people would deem as living a restricted lifestyle. I have not eaten out at a fast food restaurant outside of Chipotle and Chick-fil-A in probably 10 years, maybe 7. I can say that for certainty. McDonald's, Taco Bell, I remember the day that I quit eating at Taco Bell. I remember it vividly. I was 20 years old, maybe 19 years old. And I used to love, in my early teens, used to love going to Taco Bell. Not all the time, but I'd go there and I'd get the Mexican pizza. And then I think I'd get the cinnamon fries or something like that. Mexican pizza was a bomb. My buddy, Joel, who I've been friends with since, like, I don't know, we were in preschool or something like that. We'd go there together and that's what we'd get. And then I was out to eat. I took a year off of school after high school. Actually, I went to college for a year and then took a year off and then went back to college. So during my year off, I worked at the BMW store and a buddy and I were driving to lunch and I was like, "Oh, we could go to Taco Bell." And he just goes offhandedly. And this isn't a person that was like, he's a very fit person, but he's not a nutrition expert, not a personal trainer or nothing like that. Just offhandedly like, "No, man, Taco Bell's junk." But I respected his opinion, and I respected it so much that I never ate Taco Bell after that. So that was I was 19 years old. That was 20 years ago since I've had Taco Bell, and probably McDonald's is not far behind that. And then every other fast food restaurant has lined up behind it. I don't say that. I say that to say that I don't feel restricted. I don't feel restricted at all. Actually, I feel like I have a ton of freedom in what I eat because I know what I eat. I know exactly what it is. So the idea that if you restrict these things in your life, you're going to feel restricted and therefore be unhappy, that idea is what has led us down a path of moderating the healthy things instead of moderating the things that the saying was meant to help us moderate. So before we actually dive into the rest of the conversation, take a look at where the idea of all things moderation came from. First, I'll strongly encourage you to hit the pause button, go give us a quick review. You can give us up to a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can, of course, follow us on YouTube and greatly appreciate that. But nonetheless, the more that you review, the more reviews that we get, the more people we reach. And by you simply reviewing, taking 10 seconds to give us a review, by you simply doing that, we will reach more people and you will help us reach more people. So you are directly influencing how much this message gets out to people. So if it's bringing value to you, you reviewing it will then bring value to other people. So you're starting to change society simply by doing that. So thank you for taking time to give us a review. Now, let's jump back into this idea of moderation. By the way, you should not review us in moderation. You should review right now. At any rate, all things in moderation. Like I said, the saying was actually cut off. The saying is all things in moderation, including moderation. And really, it goes back, it seems like there's a good chance that it's the saying all things in moderation, even moderation. That particular saying goes back a couple hundred centuries. Thomas Paine, the guy, political activist from the late 1700s, who actually kickstarted the American Revolution, wrote a pamphlet called Common Sense. He wrote a letter, and in the letter, he talks about how moderation is actually a form of vice if you use it in principle, but if you use it in temper, then it is actually a virtue. So, somewhere along the lines, it got changed into all things in moderation, even moderation. Now, the idea of moderation has been around for thousands of years. The Stoic philosophers 2,000 years ago from Greece, one of the cardinal virtues of Stoic philosophy is temperance or self control or moderation, depending on how you want to say it. That's also one of the cardinal virtues of many other philosophies and many other religions: moderation, self control, temperance. The Stoics thought of temperance or moderation as doing the right thing in the right way at the right time. The right thing in the right way at the right time. So there's different ways in which you can do things, and there's different times in which you should do things. Sometimes you should do things more, sometimes you should do things less, sometimes you should do things not at all. What you have to do is know where you are on that moderation continuum. Like I said, most people set themselves way over here where they live an unhealthy lifestyle, and they think or they believe that if they go too far into the healthy lifestyle, that they're going to feel restricted, that they're going to be unhappy, that they're going to be they're just not going to be living their quote best life because they can't indulge in freaking fried chicken or cheeseburgers from McDonald's or a foo-foo drink from Starbucks whenever they want. So we have not applied moderation to where it's meant to be applied mostly, but we've applied it to an area of where it's not as meant to be applied. The Stoic philosophers wanted us to be able to live a full, healthy life. And so they created the cardinal virtues to help guide the way that we live. And self-control was framed around controlling the vices of our life. Now, there is a very small, tiny, fractional subset of people where exercise is a vice or healthy nutrition is a vice. There's a percentage of people that's very small, very tiny, and they still have unhealthy, yes, outcomes because they use exercise or nutrition as a vice. That's true. But damned if 99% of Americans, westernized society, most of the people listening to this podcast, no matter where you live, aren't even freaking close to that. Where you are, the vice is over here. The vice is all the junk and all of the nonsense that we have loaded into our lives. So much so that we've convinced ourselves that if we go too far and exercise, just a couple extra days a week or for 90 minutes instead of an hour, or I actually eat regularly and healthy for 90% of the time, then I'm in excess of health. If you can sense the irrationality in that, it's because it is irrational. So we have to begin to understand that we're living in excess in an unhealthy way, and we justify not doing healthy things because we think that that's where moderation should be applied, because we assume that the unhealthy path is normal, and that we have been tricked and fooled into believing that the unhealthy path, excuse me, the unhealthy path is what leads to a fulfilling life. It's only if you constantly seek instant gratification, constantly scroll on your phone, constantly binge watch Netflix, constantly stuff your face with, you know, bonbons and wine. If you're constantly doing these things, it's only in that you can live a fulfilled life. And if you restrict that too much, then you will not be happy and fulfilled. That's how we have been brainwashed as a society. So that shift at some point happened. And I would say that the shift over to excess and unhealthy happened probably around the 1940s, just like so many things happened after World War II, where which began the downfall of really a strong society, world society in many ways, but especially westernized society. Because we all of a sudden had so much surplus. We all of a sudden had all of these things that we could just have. And we were told that you have the right to have them. You deserve to have them. You deserve to have this junk, and you deserve to have this nonsense. And you're entitled to it. And we've been told these things. And so we've bought into it, and now we are where we are. Now we're in a place where greater than 70%, maybe close to 80% of people are overweight, and 60 to 65% are obese. Normal? Not normal. Not normal. It's because we think that it is, we have been fooled into believing that living in excess over here in unhealthy areas of life is what's going to bring happiness, is what's going to bring what we want in life. It's what's going to bring us comfort. It's what's going to bring, and it will bring you comfort, by the way. It will definitely bring you comfort. All of the levels of comfort that we have bought into are the excess that we are diving down. Mental comfort, physical comfort, biological comfort, physiological comfort. We live in a 72-degree world. No matter where you are, in an office, in your house, in your car, no matter where you are, you, on average, we live in 72 degrees. So if we get too far up or down, you get to 65 degrees or colder, it's cold to most people. If you get to 80 degrees or warmer, it's hot to most people. It's not because that's too cold or too hot. It's because your body's not adapted to it and you're too comfortable. You lived in excess in a temperature regulated environment. Couches, chairs, things like that that have cushion and don't push back against you. If you go from living a life where you sit on a couch and sit on a chair and all of a sudden you go sit on the floor, it feels very uncomfortable to you. It feels not pleasant, but it's not because the floor is actually uncomfortable. People in China sit on the floor all day long. People who practice things like Buddhism and yoga and other kinds of meditation, they sit on the floor all day long. I can tell you, they'll tell you it's not uncomfortable. It's only because you have practiced excessively in comfort, excessively in sitting in a cushy chair, finding the most comfortable chair, and that's where most people live. Psychological comfort, mental comfort. We find mental comfort in scrolling. We find mental comfort in staring at a screen. That way, we don't have to think. We can either let other people think for us, we can take their opinions and we can just blurt them out and pretend that they're ours, or we don't have to think at all. We just sit there and watch cat videos and people, picking their boogers and whatever other nonsense is on social media. You can just watch that all day long and you don't have to think about anything. Mental comfort, psychological comfort. And yet we are as unhealthy, unfit, unhappy, unsatisfied, unfulfilled as a society as we've ever been. That's not every individual, of course, it's not. But on average, things aren't improving. Not from an anxiety standpoint, not from a depressive standpoint. Anxiety and depression are at all-time high. All these things are not by happenstance. It's because we have applied the idea of moderation to living a full life and prioritizing ourselves versus living in excess and living in gluttony. We have decided to live in gluttony instead of live a full life, and we think that we need to moderate the healthy side, the side that empowers us and builds us, where the idea of moderation was first thought of to apply to vices. So in order to start to overcome this, we need to understand that it's going to start by excess action. There's another quote that came a little after Thomas Paine's quote. Let me see if I can find it real quick. So I told you Thomas Paine, the political activist that wrote Common Sense, his quote was, "Moderation in temper is always a virtue, but moderation in principle is a species of vice." A little after that, actually 100 years after that, Oscar Wilde, in one of his plays, one of the characters in the play said, "Moderation is a fatal thing. Nothing succeeds like excess." Nothing succeeds like excess. So if you take that idea, nothing exceeds like excess, and combine it with all things in moderation, even moderation, then we can start to understand how to apply the idea of moderation in our life. That nothing is forever, and you can change and adapt. And there are certain seasons in which you should change and adapt. For instance, if you are someone who needs to lose 100 pounds, moderation in exercise and nutrition is not a good idea. Excess in exercise and nutrition is what you need to do. It's not a question. You shouldn't do that moderately and keep up with your regular junk food diet, because you ain't going to make much progress, and the tiny progress you are going to make is not going to be enough to motivate you and keep you moving forward. It's not going to be enough to keep you wanting more. And that's what we miss. What we miss is we justify doing less because we don't want to overstimulate, or we want to do it in moderation. Don't want to do it in excess, but we miss the fact that we will not get the results we need in order to keep moving forward. That's why we're fucking starting, is because we want the results. And if you want the results, you need to get them quick. You need to start them sooner than later. It's not you need to get them quick and then stop. I'm not talking about instant gratification, but I kind of am. And here's the difference. You need to get them quick, build them into your life so that you see it happen, so that you keep going forward. Not so that you get them and stop. Because yeah, as human beings, we want to see progress. We want to see things happen. So when you start. Go. Do it. Jump in. Dive in head freaking first. And do it. So that you get progress, so that you move forward. And then there will be a time, once you're a little further down the road and you start to understand what you can eat, what you can't eat, what levels of macros you can have, your exercise intensity, you got your schedule figured out, you start to get into the groove of things where you can go, okay, well, now I know that if I have this meal on a Saturday night and I just jump right back on Sunday, then I'm going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. So you have to be in excess for a period of time, and then you can start getting into, quote, moderation. You can start getting into implementing, some not, effective losing weight kind of meals into your life. Those things that we think, oh, I'm going to feel restricted. Well, yeah, for a certain amount of time, you have to be. It's the way that it is. But all things are not forever, and you can change them eventually. For the time being, you have to be in excess. You have to get in and you have to go because you have to make it a part of your life. And the more often you do it, the more likely it's going to stick and the more results you're going to get. Therefore, the more likely you will be to keep going. Do you understand why the idea of moderation when you're starting to do something is such a dumb idea? It's such a dumb idea. Because you can't make progress if you just moderately tinker. And if you're not making progress, you will not want to keep going. And that's the point. So shift your mindset from moderation in health to moderation in the vices that the idea of self-control and temperance was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about the things that we use as vices. And it's when you shift into a empowering lifestyle where you're trying to improve yourself, whether you're trying to improve your psychology, you're trying to improve your mindset, you're trying to improve your body, you're trying to improve your weight, you're trying to improve your energy, no matter what it is, there's going to be a period of time where it is in excess because nothing succeeds like excess. And then eventually there can be a period of time where it doesn't have to be total excess. If you go back to the way things were, you will go back to the way you were. Understand that. So once you build new habits and behaviors into your life, they will stay there forever. And then you can moderate the other things that you want to put in. You can moderate, the desserts and the going out, and you can moderate those things. Nothing is forever, and you can always make changes down the road. So that is the contradiction of moderation, how we currently are using moderation in a way that is terribly unproductive and just not the way that it was meant to be used. And we need to start to switch that so that we can understand how to succeed. If you look at anybody who's successful in anything, they do things in excess for a period of time. And then eventually, they don't have to do it in excess anymore. And I'm not suggesting that, you want to be the world's fittest person or the world's richest person or anything like that. If you don't want to be that, that's fine. If you just want to feel better, that's fine. Still, you have to apply, the same applies. Maybe you just don't live in excess as long. But if you want to go to over fat to a healthy, quality, athletic looking body, it's going to take a level of excess for a period of time. You can moderate after that. Got to change your mindset about this. Have to realize that what society has told us is the way is not the way. If everyone else is doing it, there's a good chance the opposite is true. And that's where we can go to empower ourselves more. I appreciate you guys spending time with me today. Remember to quickly review. It takes 10 seconds to go give us a review so that we can reach more people. I greatly appreciate that. Get out there, undo the idea of moderation, live the excess healthy life that you can live, the empowering life that you can live to become your best self. Get out there, step into growth.